Name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Christ is ascended. Very good. Speaking of glorious, a glorious time of the year in our property. I just love it because you remember a few weeks ago, it was like scorched earth out there. It was either our annual prairie burn. We burn everything. Looks dead. And then we wait for the rain. The rain comes from on high. Comes down. It hits the ground, but doesn't stay there. It goes to the lowest place, into the water table. We can't go any further. And then the plants start to absorb that water. So the water comes up through the plants. A lot of the prairie grasses have very long roots. That's important. Because what happens is a chemical process happens, the water gets purified, and it becomes part of the plant while still remaining water. And it keeps rising up. And as it rises up the plant grows and blossoms, becomes this beautiful grass or flower, and then the flower gives off that water in the form of vapor, and it goes back into the air. It's incredible. I've already seen the very first, I saw the golden Alexander. It's always up with the first ones that pop up. But that rhythm of nature, especially when we see it in the prairie, parallels the rhythm of God's action. The fundamental mystery. God comes from on high, lowers himself, keeps going lower, lower, lower. He hits the earth, he becomes one of us, and then he goes beneath the earth, just like right there, to hell, to Hades, goes to the lowest place, just like the flower, the water. But then he rises up out of that lowest place, and as he's rising up, he's purifying humanity, just like the water, the flowers. He rises up, but then he takes us with him and didn't stop until he mounted us on the throne of heaven. That's what we're celebrating right now. The ascension of the Lord. That's this big euro right here. God ascends and takes human nature with him. He didn't take his skin off in front of the apostles. Well, I'm done with this. I'm out of here, guys. I did my mission. It's up to you now. He goes up to heaven like a spirit. He goes up body and soul together. So he takes the human nature, he mounts it on the throne of heaven, past the angels. It's amazing. And he did that in response to our sin. That's how he repaid us. By going as low as he can possibly go, facing hell. Would you like to go to hell? I wouldn't want to go to hell. He goes to hell. And he does battle with the devil. Does not stop his action of descending and ascending until we are in heaven. But he's gone. The apostles are sitting there standing there surprised. They go, where are you going? Same thing with Christians today. St. Paul was leaving. Oh, they were crying. Where are you going to go? Who's going to teach us? Who's going to lead us? And Jesus says, I will be here, and I'll send you the Spirit. How would he be here? He would be here through the church. Through the apostles and the leaders of the church, through time, through the sacraments, God would still be on earth. Yes, through his creation too, but he'd still be on earth through the church. And that's why today now, in addition to Ascension, we celebrate the Council Fathers from way back in 325 AD. Because what happened was, and what happens in the church, as it happens in the world, you get bad clouds too. Not only the rain clouds that make things grow, you get the bad clouds of false thinking, heresies. And the big heresy back in the 4th century, which still gets recycled today in different ways, was denial that Jesus Christ was also divine. That he was just like a prophet, kind of like the Muslims believe. But he really wasn't God. He didn't have two natures. Now that's huge. Because if we get that wrong, if that didn't happen, we're not saved. We're not saved. We have no place to go when we die except hell. That's right. That's how it was until that happened. Till Christ did the descension. If Christ were not also God, we could not be saved because human beings cannot save themselves. That's why God descended in the first place, because we couldn't do it. So if he wasn't God, more powerful than a human being, we would not be saved. That's a huge teaching. It was huge. That's why they called it council, to straighten it out. And you know what? A lot of bishops, just like today, a lot of bishops had it wrong. They believed that the heresy, it's called the Arian heresy after this priest named Arius, who spouted this heresy. A lot of the bishops believed that. Just like today, a lot of people believe wrongly about the church. And that's why what happens is the church would have these councils, and these fathers would look back before the cloud came. They look back to see, what did the apostles say? What is the true teaching? And they would hash it out, and they would pronounce it, they would condemn the heretics, and they would teach what is right. So you and I could be saved today. You and I could believe the right way. And that's why we say the creed before the Holy Eucharist. Before you come to communion, we, with great fervor, chant the creed. I believe in one God, the Father Almighty. Because you have to believe that before you come to communion. You cannot dissent from church teaching and receive Holy Communion. If you do not believe what the church says about everything, do not come to Holy Communion. You are not in communion with the church. That's why we say that. I didn't put that in the liturgy. The fathers of the church did. For this reason, you've got to stand there and proclaim to God and to the whole community what you believe before you can unite yourself with the Eucharist, which means you unite yourself completely with one another, the body of Christ. You've got to be one. Totally, totally. Not like, well, I deserve Jesus, but I don't really agree with the church. No. It's got to be complete. That's why we say that creed. You've got to believe right. But what happens is that cloud comes in, and it comes in every era. And that's why we have to keep checking back with what did the father of the church say? What do they say today? How do we know what to believe? How do we know the church is right about things? Everybody thinks the church would change its teaching on things. Why? Why? What do you base that on? Why do you think the church should change? Who says so? What do you base it on? Somebody heard on the radio, on TV, and on your phone? The church does what it does, believes what it believes, because it has from all time, and it's based, as we say in those sheets, the apostles and the fathers of the church. We're on solid ground. It's not superficial. Here's what happens. I got a little timeline. This is blue, so imagine that's the sky, blue. Now here's how, I got 1950 here, 1960, 2000. I have 1950 because I was born in 1954. So I'm going to give you first-hand testimony. That's why I chose this year. I stopped doing the math. I'm 67, okay? Don't do the math, pay attention. All right. 67, all right? I'm in the red zone for Corona. I shouldn't be here. You're going to affect me. I'm going to die. Now, what happened is this. Blue sky. Everything's clear. Now that's me. I'm in here. I'm looking at the blue sky. But in the blue sky, though, way off here, there's a little bit of clouds, a little gray stuff. See that? But still basically blue sky. But there's gray stuff. Now, what happened in my lifetime, and none of you know this because you're too young. You're all younger than me. Don't shake your head no because you go to confession. That's a lot. You're younger than me, so you don't know what I'm talking about. That's why I'm using this graph. Okay, blue sky, but I'm seeing some clouds. Oh, that's interesting. Now, these clouds came from way before me, but they're rolling in. Now, what starts to happen as I'm growing up, these clouds are getting bigger, darker. darker and lower. These clouds are certain ways of thinking which are wrong. They're ideologies. In particular, it's called Marxism, communism. But it's been around for a long time, way before me. But it's rolling in. So what's happening is, I'm growing up, and I'm seeing a change. I can see the clouds coming in, like now it's sunny, but it's going to get cloudy. So I know what the sun was, I know what the bright sky was like, but I'm seeing it change. And it's getting darker and darker until, I gotta use another piece of charcoal here, until the mid-1960s. Then it gets real dark. Boom, and there's thunder. That thunder is called the sexual revolution. There's thunder and lightning, and this gets real dark. It's descending, and here we're in the mid-60s, and it's really dark. And I'm looking at this darkness, and I knew this over here. And this is getting darker and darker until we got today where it's so dark you can't hardly even see. We're like living in darkness. Now the problem is this. If you were born after this, you only know this, and you think this is normal. That's the catch. That's the difference between a lot of you and me, and why I speak the way I do here. I know a lot of young people don't understand, they think I'm a fuddy-duddy or whatever, but you have to understand, I saw and lived this. I saw the clouds come in and what's going on here? And then we learned what these clouds were. You know, like Tom Stillings, we have a storm coming today. Well, that's what I was taught. I learned what this cloud, what's in that cloud.